Well, joining me now for more on this is retired Air Vice Marshal Sean Bell. Hi again, Sean. An extraordinary acknowledgement there by the Russian military, and this the deadliest attack for Russia since the start of this war. Let's start with what you know about what happened in Makijiwka.
Yeah, it's always worth sort of starting with what we know. The Ukrainians did a strike at Makijiwka, which is here. It's only about 13 kilometres east of the front line in some of the fiercest fighting in the Donbass region. The Russians had set up a temporary barracks facility in a school, which we've got a picture of here. Unfortunately, in the school, at the basement of the school, they'd also storing a lot of weapons and artillery. And it also appears they had lots of storage of the artillery shells around the facility as well. On New Year's Eve, shortly after midnight, the Ukrainians used the HIMARS rocket system, the American system, fired a salvo of 6 rockets, 2 of which the Russians claimed to have shot down, but 4 made their way through with devastating consequences. We've got some images of before and after here, which we can show. They're quite grainy images, but this is the school we've just been seeing, this white blob here, and it's in the middle of a town, which is worth pointing out. We see the after images as well, after the strike, which is just in the new year, and the facility has been completely destroyed. But what I draw your attention to is that if you looked at any other villages and towns in the Donbass that the Russians have been fighting in, the whole area is devastated. The advantage of having precision weapons is that that target's been destroyed, but largely the rest of the village and town has been untouched.
And, of course, as we've seen throughout this war, there's a war of words as well, both sides reporting this incident very differently, and a big discrepancy in terms of casualty numbers.
Yes, we've always got to take a bit of a pinch of salt because both sides, both the Russians and Ukrainian, always come out with slightly different numbers. The Ukrainians said 400 Russians died and 300 injured. The Russians actually, strangely, very quickly countered and said they'd lost 63, but that's been updated to 89 subsequently. Independent experts have said that there were over 600 military personnel here at the time. But when you look at the devastation of the building and the fact almost certainly this was caused by other ammunition that was stored in the basement, it's very difficult to see any Russians would have got out of this unscathed. Yeah. And whatever the actual numbers are, many of those who are injured will never return to the war again, and many are tragically will probably die of their injuries. As you said, it's the deadliest strike since the start of the war.
And the Russian military have also said that these Russian soldiers were targeted and identified in terms of their location because of the use of personal mobile phones. Is that the case? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's very difficult to tell exactly what the cause was, but it's worth actually, it does illustrate the Russians are fighting a sort of 20th century warfare. That's been their recent experience. When they fought in Chechnya, they've been fighting low-tech enemies. They fight a war of attrition. And even in Ukraine, the Russians have been firing 20,000 rounds of artillery every single day, unguided, levelling the battlefield. Ukraine has been supported by the West weapons, like this HIMARS system here, trying to use far more accuracy. These can strike their targets very accurately, but we need to know where the target is, and that needs intelligence. Now, intelligence can come from all sorts of things, from satellite technology, from drones, but also, returning to the theme of mobile phones, it can come from tracking communications. Phones can be triangulated for position and also listened into. Now, Russians do have secure radios, but because of the corruption in the Russian military, they don't have enough. Now, if not everybody has a secure communication, nobody can have them, and therefore the Russians have become increasingly reliant on mobile phones for communication. New Year's Eve, everybody celebrates. You can imagine the conscripts calling their family. Lots of the mobile phones light up, identified as a target, and then with tragic consequences. And it's a really dreadful example of Russian military shortcomings, which they really should be learning better 10 months into the war.
Yeah, and a very stark example of their operational security. Sean, for now, thank you.